My name is Crystal, and today we are going to do a little bit of yin yoga. So for class today, you might like a pillow or a bolster, a block or a good-sized book, and a blanket. So feel free to pause the video and go grab those things and then join us when you're ready. And so just a little bit about yin yoga. We are going to work on getting out of the muscles and into the connective tissue. And the way that we do that is by coming into each pose for 3 to 5 minutes. And as we move into the pose, we are going to look for our edge, that sweet spot that is just enough that it might not feel the best, but it's not painful. If you have any sharp shooting pains, I want you to come immediately out of the pose. And then as we are meeting our edge in each pose, we are going to work to embrace that stillness. We're going to work really hard to fight the urge to fidget, to wiggle, to move around. And the best way that I know to do that is by continuously coming back to the breath. So you'll hear me talking a lot about breathing and focusing on the breath and all of that throughout class. Also, please note that this might be more of a silent class. I might not talk a whole lot, so if it's up to you, if you would like, you can put on some nice relaxing music in the background as well. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to start class today in what is called embryos. So go ahead and come onto the knees. We're going to bring the knees together, feet together, and then sit the hips down to the heels. If the heels don't sit comfortably to the hips, you can bring that blanket in, giving a little bit of extra space there for the hips to relax onto. And then we're going to begin to find the fold forward towards the floor. Maybe that forehead reaches all the way to the floor. Maybe you want to bring this blanket in just a little bit, bringing that forehead up, giving a little less compression on the belly there. And then we're going to take these hands and wrap them around to the feet, letting the shoulders wrap around the knees, letting the body just settle in. As we fold into this pose, again, it's called embryos. So just think of yourself being that tight little, in your mother's womb, all round up, super tight space here. And we are going to take this time, these next 5 minutes, to settle in, to allow ourselves to transition from anything that we might have been doing before this video to what we're doing now. To inviting the body into some relaxation, inviting the mind to begin to quiet, and just letting ourselves settle in here. And so I encourage you to check in on the spots in the body that you know that you carry tension. So for me, that's my neck and shoulders. I know that I like to keep them tight. I like to hold them up towards my ears. And so I am going to allow myself to relax them down towards the floor. I'm going to get really loose in the arms, really loose in the shoulders. I've also been known to clench through the jaw and grip through my fingers and toes. So checking into those places. And I trust that you know your body the best. So again, checking in on those places within your body that you know that you hold on to tension. And seeing if we can't just let it go for a moment, maybe even if it's just on the exhale, but allowing the body to relax, to release, to surrender. And being able to follow that breath, bring some awareness to it. If you're anything like me, breathing might be a little bit more difficult in this pose. We're pressing our belly into the legs and really just not giving much room for that breath. And so I invite you to think about where in the body can we allow some expansion so that we can find that deeper breath. Can we let the back of the body lift? Can we let the ribs and the sides open and expand? And then feeling that contraction as we let the breath go. And our thoughts are going to pop up throughout class today, and that is fine. That's what our mind is here to do, is to think. And our job
for this next hour is to not attach ourselves to any of those thoughts, to not chase them down a rabbit hole, but to do our best to stay present here in this moment. And so the best way I know is to again bring that focus back to the breathing. If you do find that you have caught yourself following a thought, I want you to practice that kindness and compassion, bringing yourself gently back to our breathing, back to that breath. Not having judgment, not being mean to yourself by any means. It's natural. It is exactly what our brains are supposed to do, is to think and to attach the thought to thought. We have less than a minute left here. So again, seeing if we can't find that deeper breath, letting the body expand. From here, let's go ahead and bring the hands back underneath the shoulders. As we slowly find our way onto the knees, you can slide the props off to the side if you are using any. And from here, we're going to move into tabletop. So wrists come under shoulders, knees come under hips. And we're going to find these cat-cows as we drop the belly, lifting the tailbone and collarbone, coming into cow. And then rounding through the spine as we tuck chin to chest, coming into cat. Breathing as we come back into cow. And letting it go as we come back into cat. And then taking your time here, moving through your body at your pace, adding what other movements feel good to you, if it's dropping the hips side to side, if it's rocking back and forth a little bit. We're just going to invite that movement into the body here. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and lower all the way down onto our bellies as we come into Sphinx pose. So starting from the feet and working all the way up to the crown of the head, we're going to gently press into the tops of the feet, loosening through the legs, through the glutes as we stack the elbows underneath the shoulders and lift through the collarbone, through the crown of the head, coming into Sphinx pose here. So if this is too much of a back bend, I want you to walk your elbows out just a little bit. If this is not enough of a back bend, you can begin to press into the hands, coming all the way into seal pose. So a few options there. Find what feels best in your body today, and then settle in. Wherever you are, whichever pose you are taking, I want those shoulders to be back and down, away from the ears, as we keep this lift with the collarbone. I want you to lift with the chest, lift with that collarbone, as we lengthen up and out. We're only here for 3 minutes, so keep that in mind as you are meeting your edge. And doing our best to, again, find that breathing. The belly is once again pressed into something, into the floor this time. So where in the body can we find that space for the breath? Finding that in and out. My hair has a mind of its own today. Sorry, guys. So again, just finding that breathing. Finding that flow as we keep the lift with the shoulders down. We won't stay here forever, I promise. We're already about halfway through. Continuing to stay with that breathing. Continuing to keep that lift. Gaze can be straight ahead. You can even be zoned out on something off in the distance. That is just fine. Just a little bit longer. If you want to try that deeper back bend, now is a great time to press into those hands. Again, dropping the shoulders down the back, doing our best to stay loose through the glutes so that we don't tighten through the sacrum. And let's take one more deep breath in here. And as we let it go, let's all lower all the way down to the mat. Ear comes to the mat, either ear. We're just going to let it settle for a moment. Allow the body to completely relax. And then from here, hands come under the shoulders, tuck the toes as we press our way back into that tabletop position. Wrists move under shoulders, knees move under hips. And again, let's take those cat-cows, moving through the spine as we release that hold. And then from here, we are going to walk the hands out one handprint. And then I want you to take this left foot and we are going to swing it around to the front. It's okay if you need to assist the leg a little bit, but we're going to move into a low lunge here, reaching the hips forward towards this front heel. Hands can stay planted on the mat. You can bring the hands up to the knees. You can even grab a block and bring the floor up however you would like it to be. Again, we're pressing those hips forward, reaching those hips forward. And I know it's not always the easiest, but if you're posted up on the arms, I want you to work on not dumping into those arms, not putting all your weight there. Keep a little gentle engagement through that core so that we're holding the upper body upright with a little bit of our core and some of our arms. And again, we're allowing those hips to reach forward. And then settling in. Again, another 3-minute hold here. As we breathe into this space. And this is another great time to check in with the body on those places that we like to hold tension. Sometimes as we move into the hips, our body starts to lock back up. So check in with those shoulders, check in with the jaw, check in with the forehead even. A lot of times we have our eyebrows lifted without even realizing it. So just giving that relaxation into the body, letting it settle here. You guys are doing wonderful, just staying with that breathing. We are about halfway through. Again, we are fighting that urge to fidget. Like I said, I'm still the worst at it, but it's okay. I'm working on recovery here. Again, just allowing those muscles to settle,
so that we can get that lengthening through the tendons and the ligaments. Less than a minute left here. And from here, we are going to shift the hips back. I want you to think of pulling back with that left hip crease as we lengthen through that left leg, coming into a half splits. Toes can come back towards the nose, and we're just going to lengthen, allowing this leg to move in the opposite direction for a moment. And then from here, returning ourselves back into that tabletop position, recentering here. Let's go ahead and walk the hands back underneath the shoulders. And then we're going to walk the hands out again, that one handprint, as we this time swing that right foot up and around to the top of the mat. And again, we're going to reach those hips forward as we find dragon on the opposite side. So again, we can bring in that block. Hand can come to the knee, whatever feels best in your body. And let me go ahead and flip that timer so that we're not here longer than we need to be. And so if you are like me and posted up on the hands here, sometimes it feels nice to flip those fingertips back towards the toes. And I encourage you to walk them back underneath the shoulders just a little bit. And then allowing the hands to press into the mat, the heels of the hands, so that we get this nice wrist stretch here, in addition to opening on the right side. And stay with those fingertips flipped for as long as feels nice to you, and then you can flip those fingertips right back around to the front. It's just a nice little wrist stretch here, especially for those of us who spend more time at a desk than we might like throughout the day. And letting, again, that breath be the guide here, letting that breath be the thing that helps you stay and that helps you settle. And if you start to feel like you are dumping into the hands, that those wrists are just taking a beating, the hands are taking a beating, find that gentle lift through the core. Find that belly button coming back to the spine so that we have some engagement to help hold the upper body. We have about a minute left on this side. Continuing to breathe through this hold. You're doing wonderful. We're almost done. And let's once again begin to straighten through that right leg, pulling that right hip crease back as we find our way into that half splits. Right legs lengthen long, toes back towards the nose.
And then once again, finding our way back into tabletop. Knee comes under shoulder, hands comes under the wrist. Let's find a few cat-cows. Under the shoulder, knee comes under the hip. There we go, wrist under the shoulder. Playing a game of Twister over here, apparently. And then once you're through with those cat-cows, we are gonna move into downward facing dog. So walking your hands out, those one handprints. We're gonna tuck the toes and then using the core, take the hips high into downward facing dog. Feel free to pedal out your feet here, making any movements that feel good to you. Dropping one heel to the mat, then the other. Or if you're ready for it, simply lengthening both heels towards the mat as we keep this lift here in the hips. Upper body reaches back towards the feet, back towards the thighs. From here, we are going to move into swan or pigeon, whatever you would like to call it, as we find a gentle lift in this left leg. And then we're going to bring this left knee to the left wrist as we bring that left foot to the right side of the mat. I want you to slide that right leg as far back as you can, untucking the toe so that we can get the hips as low to the mat as you can. Now, if you were like me and there is a nice space between the ground and the hip here, feel free to grab that block or blanket, whatever support you might like. We are going to be here for 5 minutes, so keep that in mind as you are finding your edge. And then with the hips staying square to the front, we're gonna find this fold forward over the front leg. Maybe you come down to the forearms, maybe it's all the way to the forehead, maybe it's somewhere in between, utilizing the props, the supports that we have. Wherever you are, we're doing our best to relax through the legs. Now, if this pose just does not feel right in your hips, you can always take this pose on the back. Coming down here where we cross that left ankle over the right knee and then draw the right knee into the chest, allowing that left knee to fall away from the shoulder. We don't want it collapsing in, we want it to be active and pressing away. And so this opens the same area, it's just a little less intense there. So all those options, find what feels best for you. And like I said, we are here for 5 minutes, so keep that in mind as you are meeting your edge. And keep that in mind as you are deciding what supports you want to give. Supports and props are my favorite thing in yin yoga because it allows you to really settle in, to allow that access, to allow that comfort in each pose when we might be finding discomfort in a lot of other ways in the pose. And once you are settled, once we have moved all the little fidgets, the wiggles, again, finding that breath. I know sometimes in these longer ones, our mind begins to wander a lot quicker. Our thoughts begin to creep in and we're more prone to travel down a thought. And so if you find that that is happening here, I invite you to give your mind something to focus on. So maybe giving your mind the focus of the tip of your nose, where we feel that breath coming in and that breath coming out. Or wherever else in the body you're feeling the breath the most. Maybe it's the back of the throat. Maybe you want to focus into the chest, into the heart area. Maybe it's all the way into the bottom of the lungs. Wherever you want to send that focus, though, go ahead and send it there. We are already halfway through this. Guys are doing wonderful. This is actually one of my least favorite poses, so I try to do it more often because it is my least favorite. It means that's where in the body I need to be working the most. about a minute left. You guys are doing great. And if you are down on the forearms or the forehead, let's go ahead and bring those hands back underneath the shoulders. We're going to slide the props off to the side, whatever you might have been using. Tucking that right toe, we're going to walk that right leg back in a little. And then pressing into the hands, lifting that right knee, we're going to send that left leg back and out, and then open into scorpion dog here. Just feeling that opening along the front of the left hip. Feel free to add any additional movements. If it's some knee circles here, if it feels better to extend and then retract that leg. And then once you are satisfied, returning that left foot to the mat, let's take a moment to recenter in our downward facing dog here. And then this time we're going to send that right leg back and out. And then right knee comes to right wrist as we find this pose on the opposite side. Again, sliding that left leg way back and then dropping that knee, untucking that toe. Giving whatever support you might need underneath this right hip. Keeping the hips square to the front. We fold forward towards the floor, wherever that takes you on this side. And so I forgot to mention it in our previous pose, but it's okay if the poses don't look the exact same side for side. We use each side of our body a little differently throughout the day. So if your right side is just a little different than your left, that is perfectly normal and completely okay. It's more important that we focus on how you feel in the body than what you look like side to side. And again, just that reminder, you can take this pose on the back, this time crossing that right ankle over the left knee and drawing the left knee into the chest. And trying to find that stillness in the pose again, not just within the body, but also within the mind. And this is another great time to do that scan through the body to make sure that we're not squeezing or holding or clenching. My sneaky spot in this pose is I clench through my right quad. I want to contract through my quad here instead of allowing it to relax. And it's only on my right side. I can do it on my left, no problem, but my right always wants to sneak in and hold on. So be aware of what's happening in the body. Be aware of those little sneaky places that we want to hold on and see if we can't let them go. See if we can't allow it to surrender. We're a little over halfway through here. And so as we stay in these longer holds, it's okay to check in about halfway through and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. Sometimes that deeper opening has happened and there's a millimeter or two more that your body's ready to give. And sometimes maybe we went
little too far to the edge and our body's asking us to back off. So embrace whatever it might be that the body is asking and allow yourself to make those adjustments. And if you find that those thoughts are creeping in, maybe it's time to invite some counting to our breathing. So finding that inhale to a count of 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Staying with that. We're almost done on this side. And if you are on the forearms, let's go ahead and bring the hands back underneath the shoulders. Prop slides off to the side. Tuck their left toe, walk that left leg in as we lift that left knee and send that right leg back and out, moving into that scorpion dog. Allowing the hips to open, to twist. Again, inviting any movements that feel right to you. If it's straightening or bending that leg. Drawing some knee circles here, just whatever feels best to you. And then when you are satisfied, returning that right foot to the mat as we recenter in our downward facing dog. This time taking a moment just to lengthen both the heels towards the mat, to really stretch that out for a moment as we keep this lift here. Chest reaches back towards those thighs as we are grounded through the hands. And let's take one more deep breath in here. And as we exhale, lowering down to the knees, we're going to cross the ankles and come all the way into a seat here. So I'm going to move here to the center of the mat. Feel free to make your way there as well. And our next pose is going to be butterfly. So if you are really tight through the lower back and hamstrings, you can grab that blanket and slide it just underneath the edge of the hips. So not all the way under. Here, I'm going to turn and show you just underneath the edge here, giving those hips just that little bit of lift. And then we're going to bring these soles of the feet together, drawing the heels in towards the hips. And this is where, if you have those pillows or those books or even the blocks, drawing the knees in or the heels in towards the hips, we can allow the knees to fall to the blocks. Resting here, this will be another 5-minute hold. So getting your lower body set up how you want. And then when you are ready, finding that fold towards the floor. Maybe you make it down to the forearms. Maybe you even make it down to the forehead. Maybe you bring that pillow in to give a little bit of support here, whatever feels best to you. And then with the rest of this, I want you to allow your head to be heavy. You don't have to hold your neck up. We can allow that chin to fall to the chest. Lengthening through this entire spine here. Giving this little space as we continue to fold. And don't you worry, I'm keeping an eye on the time here. Promise to not keep you here longer than 5 minutes. We're about halfway through this class, guys. Maybe a little bit more. But we are through half of our poses.
So thank you for sticking with me this long. And thank you for sticking with yourself this long. I feel like yin is such an important practice because we spend so much of our day in this hustle and bustle and moving from one thing to the next and just going, that sometimes we don't allow ourselves this time and space to relax. And that's what I love about yin, is while it might not be the most relaxing in each pose that we come in, it does force us to slow down, to settle, and to work on embracing that stillness. Letting that chin fall to chest if you found that you're holding your head up again. Letting gravity do some work here, letting it lengthen through the neck, open through the spine. We have about 2 minutes left here. So again, checking on that edge, seeing if it's shifted at all. Maybe those blocks want to slide out just a little, letting the knees fall just a millimeter or two more. Or maybe your legs are ready for those blocks to come in just a little bit more. Continuing to breathe for this last minute, and if you're ready, bringing back that count of 5. From here, let's use the hands to walk the upper body back upright. We're going to assist underneath the knees as we bring them back up towards the ceiling. And then planting the feet out in front of us, about hip distance apart, we're going to take that windshield wipering side to side, letting the knees fall to the left and then to the right. Just giving ourselves this little reset here, moving through the hips, releasing that last hold. And then our next pose is going to be what's called caterpillar, or seated forward fold. So we're going to extend the legs long out in front. Again, if you are tight through the lower back and hamstrings, keeping that blanket right underneath the edge of the hips here. If you are dealing with any sciatic pain, instead of the legs extended long, I want you to take an extended diamond. So not butterfly like we just had, but extended diamond, just bringing the soles of the feet together and allowing those knees to fall open. You can again bring the blocks in.
And again, this is if you're dealing with sciatic pain. Straight legs will actually aggravate the sciatic nerve versus relieving it, and so we want to avoid that. With the legs extended long, we're going to keep that gentle lift here as we begin to find a fold forward towards the toes. Maybe you make it all the way to the toes. Maybe it's right here at the shins. Maybe right here at the upper thighs is where you are, and that is just fine. But wherever you find yourself today in this next hold, this 5-minute hold, I want you to once again allow the upper body to relax. If that maybe means bringing in a pillow here so that you can let the head rest onto the pillow. You can even use the blocks or the blanket to give something for the chin or forehead to rest on. One last little thing. If you have a difficult time with your legs lengthening out straight, so you see how mine are straight to the mat here. If you have this little gap here where the legs have a hard time relaxing, you can take that blanket and roll it up a little and slide it underneath the knees. That will allow the knees to relax onto the blanket so that you can then find that fold forward towards the toes, again, wherever that takes you. So just a nice little support here so that you can settle yourself in and find some relaxation. So this is the last of our 5-minute holds, guys. So just bear with me, settle yourself in. Again, give yourself whatever supports or comforts you might like. Another thing that I want to bring up is if your arms are extended long towards these feet, make sure that we're not reaching those shoulders up towards the ears. Let those shoulders fall away, and if that means that we just let our arms fall like noodles by our sides so that we're not holding them up, that's what I want you to do. It's more important that we find this opening through the hamstrings and lower back than reaching ourselves all the way to the toes. Again, allowing yourself to just settle in, to breathe, to focus. Finding that flow, that rhythm here. If possible, again, letting that head be heavy, the chin to fall towards the chest. Again, we're looking for as much ease in these poses as we can find, especially on the parts that we're not working on lengthening and opening. Embracing that relaxation. We have about 1.5 minutes left here. So again, checking on that edge. Maybe there's 1 millimeter or 2 more. Maybe it's time to back off just a little. Listen to your body. It's not a competition on how deep we can get. Because I promise you the consistency is what's important. The more that we do this, the deeper we will eventually get. Doing that quick check-in with the shoulders again.
And let's once again bring the upper body back upright, using the hands to walk. Then once upright, taking a couple ankle circles, maybe bouncing through the feet, a couple of shoulder rolls here, just what other movements feel good to you. Maybe a little rotation through the spine. And then from here, we are going to find our way onto our backs. So however you would like to gracefully get there. And then once we are down on the backs, I actually want you to take your hips and we are going to shift them all the way over to the left side of our mat. Then we're going to walk our feet down to this bottom left corner. Then I want you to walk your shoulders to the upper left corner. So we're moving into a pose called Banana Asana. We're going to take this right arm and allow it to reach up and over, just finding this deep, deep, deep side stretch here. Then maybe you reach up and grab that right wrist with the left hand, pulling the arm a little bit further. And maybe if you have the openness, you cross that right ankle over the left. The important thing here is we want that right shoulder and right hip to stay flat to the mat. So we're not rolling on our side, but we're staying flat here on the back. And then once you are here, maybe you close the eyes, maybe you just stare off at the ceiling. As we allow the body to settle once more, feeling this nice deep side stretch, maybe all the way from the pinky finger down to the pinky toe. One thing I do want you to keep an awareness on is that right shoulder. Sometimes when we reach the arm up and over, we want to help it. And we don't need to help it with that right shoulder. The help is by pulling it with that left hand, not by reaching it with the right. And so allowing that right shoulder to relax as we find this lengthening here. I forgot to flip the timer. I apologize, guys. Finding that breath, maybe giving the focus to the belly where we feel it rising and falling as we breathe in and breathe out. We have about a minute left here. And if that ankle is crossed, go ahead and uncross it. We're going to release that right arm, bringing it back down by the side. Let's bring the heels in towards the hips. Lift the hips and shift them all the way over to the left side of the mat this time. Feet come to the bottom right corner. Left arm reaches up and over as we walk the shoulders to the upper right corner, finding the side stretch along the left side body this time. Again, that left hand can, let me start that over. That right hand can capture the left arm, pulling it up and over. But again, we want to allow the shoulder to relax, not be active in that.
And then you can cross that left ankle over the right, deepening this stretch here. If, again, that allows that hip to fall to the mat. We don't want to roll to the side, but keep it flat towards the mat. And then settle in, embrace this stillness, embrace being supported by the mat, feeling the body not having to hold on to anything because we are resting into the floor. And just that reminder that the left side can look a little different than the right, and that is just fine. Deciding where we want our focus to be. Maybe it's the tip of the nose. Maybe it's back to the belly. Maybe we're back to counting. All are perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. We have about a minute left. And then we move into the final two poses of class. And if that wrist is held, ankle crossed, go ahead and release those. We're going to bring the hips back to the center of the mat, shoulders back to the center of the mat. And then from here, let's draw both knees into the chest, giving that little squeeze. Feel free to rock side to side, massaging the lower back here. And then moving into some supine twist, feel free to take the arms wide, making a T with the upper body, or goal posting the arms, creating that little cactus arms here. We're going to allow the knees to fall all the way over to the left as we rotate this right shoulder back towards the mat. So don't be afraid to lift and rotate through that upper body. If there is a space between or underneath the knees that is uncomfortable for you, feel free to once again grab that blanket or block and give the support there. And then something I want you to keep in mind, the closer to the knees that the closer to the chest that the knees are, the more into the upper back you will feel this twist. The lower down towards the lower back, or lower towards the hips, the more into the lower back you will feel this twist. So feel free to play around with the position of the knees and find where in the body it feels best on this side. And just if you want to complete this rotation, you can turn the head all the way over to the right, taking this full twist here through the spine.
And continuing to breathe, continuing to find those full, deep inhales and exhales. We have about a minute left here. And with that subtle engagement through the core, we're going to bring the knees back through center and allow them to fall all the way over to the right this time as we rotate that left shoulder flat towards the mat. Again, giving whatever support you might need between or underneath the knees. And then playing around with the position of the knees, if it's more towards the chest or lower down towards the hips that feel best for you on this side. And then allowing yourself to settle in once more, rotating that head all the way to the left to complete this rotation if that feels nice to you. And where have your thoughts gone? Just bringing them back to this body, back to our breathing. We're halfway through this hold. And let's once again find our way onto the back, bringing both knees into the chest, giving ourselves this last little squeeze. Feel free to tuck the chin, lifting the head, hugging everything tight, this last little compression here. And then extending the legs long as we take the arms all the way overhead, moving into that full body stretch, lengthening from fingertips to toes. And then bringing both arms back down by the side as we settle in for Shavasana. So if this is uncomfortable, lying flat on the back, you can bring the feet in towards the hips, taking the legs or the feet out wide to the edges of the mat, and then allow the knees to fall in towards one another. You can also take reclined butterfly if that is something that sounds nice to you. Wherever you are, we are once again going to invite that relaxation into the body. Invite that calm as we return our breathing to the breath and allow each inhale and each exhale to take us deeper and deeper into relaxation. Slowly begin to bring awareness back to the body, wiggling the fingertips and the toes, rotating the ankles and the wrist, making any movements that feel nice to you. And then when you are ready, let's go ahead and make your way over to whichever side feels most comfortable. Taking a few moments here to come back to full awareness. And then in your own time, please make your way up to a comfortable seated position. Thank you all so much for joining me here today and in sharing this practice with me. It is such an honor to spend this time with you. My hands and my heart, the divine in me honors and respects the divine in each and every one of you. Namaste.